A very good evening to you all. We're thankful that modern technology can make possible our communication with you via the satellite feed. A kind of immersive virtual reality. Well, only without the psychedelic lights and sounds, and of course the 3D glasses. Dignitaries, special guests, our extended family, and many friends, and of course, the reason for this brief communication this evening. Dr. Reverend Emmanuel Moodley, happy 70th birthday. We here in the US have just celebrated the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, a holiday that commemorates the life and legacy of the civil rights icon. I invited my colleagues at the university to read the Pulitzer Prize winner and African-American author Alex Haley's book, Roots, the Saga of an American Family. It sold over 1 million copies, and the mini television series was watched by more than 130 million people. I say all of that to say this. One of Haley's oft-quoted lines goes something like this: "Find the good and praise it." It is said that he lived by these 6 words: find the good and praise it. Well, this evening is all about a celebration, and it is a celebration of the good. It does not take one too long, nor is it an arduous search to find the good in Emmanuel's 70-year lifespan. His fingerprints are strikingly evident in cultural, social, and religious initiatives in the community, too numerous for us to recount. And his footprints literally span the globe. There's an historical narrative in the Hebrew Bible that has some parallel with his ministry. The book of Joshua, chapters 3 to 5. You will recall that the crossing of the Jordan is remembered as one of the key events in Israel's history. Just as the Red Sea miracle changed Israel's status, its status from slave to free, so with Joshua, the trek through the Jordan transformed Israel from a wandering nation to a landed people, a nation. First, chapter 4 is anchored by 2 hard-to-miss details: the significance of the Jordan crossing and the instruction to Israel as to how to remember that historic event. In both cases, a child's question, "What do these stones mean?" prompts an explanation of the meaning of the event. Joshua chapter 4 verse 9 reports that Joshua configured a set of stones in the middle of the Jordan River as the priests carrying the ark stood there with the waters cut off upstream. Now that's the rough contours of the story. This evening we too have come to gather memorial stones. It is important to commemorate. It is important to remember. This memory includes knowledge about the past. But more than mere knowledge, commemoration requires personal identification with the meaning of past events. Without remembering, there is no identity. With amnesia, one loses one's identity. And without common remembering, there is no community. So what do we commemorate? There are many teaching moments we can elicit from Emmanuel's 70 years of existence. Let me highlight just one noteworthy trait that characterizes the man Emmanuel Moodley. Emmanuel is acutely aware that poverty has many faces. Economically disadvantaged populations, those who suffer gender inequality, violence, injustice, and the denial of children's rights, and many others, In fact, he knows that any form of discrimination impoverishes. I call him regularly on his birthday and would ask him the question how he was spending his day. And his response, I fed the widows and the elderly in church. I took a group of children to McDonald's for a meal. These are just not random, isolated acts of generosity and kindness expressed to those living on the margins and periphery of society. They have a history. It's a recollection of his own past. You see, for many years, our family, 6 siblings and our parents, 8 members in all, before our youngest brother Ben arrived, lived in a 1-bedroom house in Carnley Terrace, Briardine. The room measured 12 feet by 12 feet. I recall Mom sending me to the store one day to buy groceries on credit. Dad paid the grocery account at the end of the week, well, on most weeks. On this particular week, there was not enough money to meet that week's payment, and the shopkeeper, Mr. Naidu, would not let me have the groceries we needed. I came back home, and by then, Emmanuel had come home from school. Well, he took our little notebook and went back to the store, and to this day, I am not sure of the nature of the conversation that transpired between him and the store owner. But he came back with a bag of groceries, and Mum was able to prepare us the meal. I believe that events such as these shaped and formed Emmanuel to the point that today he cannot bypass somebody in need. Hence his generous spirit. But more importantly, I believe he has made the scandal of poverty the primary lens through which he reads Scripture and by which he shapes his ministry, especially in the context of South Africa, where the scandal, and the scandal being that abject poverty and lavish wealth exist side by side, still dominates even 24 years after apartheid. Celebration, commemoration. Let me conclude by saying something about consecration. Perhaps, better still, a reconsecration. Joshua said to the leaders at the Jordan River, when the children ask, what do these stones mean? Mention explicitly that the stones were a memorial to the fact that the waters of the Jordan were cut off in front of the ark. The retelling of the past offered them numerous teaching moments. Joshua's obedience, his charismatic leadership, and God's faithfulness to keep his side of the bargain, the covenant. This lovely event this evening is not only a rehearsal about the past. Rather, it is also a moment to reflect on the trajectory of this legacy into the future. What will Emmanuel's agenda for the next phase of his life look like? I suspect that by a stubborn adherence to the notion that the God who called him to mission and ministry some 43 years ago deserves nothing less today than God did then. That kind of motivation will prompt decisive action only for the sake of the kingdom and human flourishing. It is a good moment to rejoice for what God has achieved through this one life. It is also a perfect moment to renew our collective faith for what can be achieved in the coming days. Reverend Dr. Emmanuel Moodley, your future is as bright as the morning sun, and your best days are still ahead of you. Congratulations.